Spicy Toast Gaming here. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope this video can make it a little bit better. This is going to be a epic relic guide, so we're going to go through all of the different epic relics, tell you how you can use them, and what champions work well with each one. Now, if you just have a specific epic relic you want information on, you can go to the timestamps down below, and if this video helped you out, a like and subscribe would be appreciated. Alright, let's just jump right into it. So up first, we have Chosen by the Stars. So Faded and Augment, you have those automatically, and then in Power 10, Overwhelm, Regen, and Challenger. Now, you want to be using the Faded and Augment to boost up your character's stats in order to get these other keywords also online. Note with the Empower, this activates when you hit 10 power, but if you lose that power, this will go away. So if you hit like a Frostbite or something like that, you'll actually lose these keywords, so pay attention to that. Now, you could use this on some of the bigger champions that can activate it like immediately, like Aurelion Sol or Elder Dragon. I don't think that's actually that beneficial though. Yes, you can activate it right away, but they have better relics to use, at least in my opinion. I actually like using this on some of the champions you're going to play earlier in the game, and the ones you're really going to rely on to carry you through to actually finish out the game. So Diana is one that I really like to use this with. You can trigger those effects and activate this in Power 10. Normally in like the second round that you have her on the board. Vayne, again, very similar. You can trigger those Faded and Augments and then get these extra keywords on your champion, normally like the second round or even first round that you have played your Vayne. So Vayne is another one that works out really well here. Tom Kench is solid with him taking that extra damage and scaling up. You can also activate the Chosen by the Stars very quickly. Regen's really good for him. You can pair this with some Berserker's bucklers or buckles to be able to again trigger these effects. So he's another one that is pretty solid. And Jack also works pretty well. You can trigger that Faded and Augment pretty easily, and then all of these keywords also work out quite well for him. But let's move on then to the Death's Foil. Now, Death's Foil is a fun one, and I actually just want to give a little combination of what you can do with this relic and some of the other epic relics as well. So for the Death's Foil, since it's giving you that one extra power, one thing you can do if you're a little extra, especially if you have these Starforged Gauntlets, you can actually use these to help you hit that Titanic threshold. So you're using it as a stat relic, but also getting its very strong effect. So right here for Vex, if you pair Death's Foil plus Spectral Scissors or one of the other 2 power stat relics, you can hit Titanic on your power, and then that can actually activate your Starforged Gauntlets. So while we're going to talk about the places where you can use this on its own, you can actually use it as a stat relic and try to use this to get some powerful combinations on, especially with any of your units that have 5 power, because you can activate that Starforged Gauntlets without actually going down the Luminous Orb route if you want. Now, there's other places to also use this, but it is pretty good combination you can use right here. Just wanted to shout that out before we got into the other details about it. Also remember, this will be the same for the Spectral Scissors, another way you can activate the Starforged Gauntlets. Now, as far as champions you actually want to use the Death's Foil on, it's really anyone that you want to be able to benefit from this extra effect of I can't take damage or die while attacking. So aggressive champs are going to be doing a lot of attacks, and also ones that could use that extra little stat increase. So Vayne is a great example here. You're going to do a lot of attacks with Vayne. All of those rallies you're going to be doing with Vayne can often attack like 3 times in a single round. So making sure you don't take any damage during those attacks, very nice. Also the extra stat right there, really good. Can also be very good for LeBlanc. Not only is it giving you more power, so you can try to level up your LeBlanc faster, but if you would pair Death's Foil with like double Stalker's Blades, then when you attack and you summon another LeBlanc, that copy of LeBlanc will get the strikes off with the Stalker's Blades, but then not die even though they're ephemeral because of the Death's Foil. This is going to hit all of your champion, or every copy of your champion. So even your ephemeral versions, if they're attacking, they still won't die even though they are ephemeral. So that is really solid right there. So Vayne, very good with this. The LeBlanc, also pretty solid. And then Misfortune, again, really good for this, because often with Misfortune, she's fairly weak, but you want to be able to attack. So making her have the safety here is pretty good. Overall, fairly decent relic, and one you can really pair with some other combinations of relics to give you some very powerful effects. Now, Disciple of Shadows is up next, and this is a Very versatile relic. It has 2 different parts to it, so I cost 1 less for each ally in play. So the more units you have on your board, the more cost reduction you get from this. And then play, deal 3 to all other allies. Now, both of these effects can be very good for some champions. This is very solid cost reduction relic. A lot of people you can use this on. So like Yuumi has a very special interaction with this one. With Yuumi, normally, well, play effects don't go off when you play Yuumi if you are attaching her. So you can then get the cost reduction benefit of this because with her second star power, she summons 2 Poros. So you can play Yuumi immediately turn 1, which is always massive to be able to play your champion turn 1, but she won't trigger the play effect. So for Yuumi, you get the cost reduction bonus, you don't get the negative effect. For many other champions, the play and deal damage to your own units is actually very nice. So Thresh, this is going to be pretty good on to kill some of your units. Volibear, killing your units and giving yourself some sigils. Viego, being able to kill your units, and then that can contribute towards your level up, so that's also really solid. Mordekaiser, Elder Dragon, Aurelian Soul, really all of those just very big champions that are expensive. You want to get them on the board as soon as possible. All of them are great with this relic. But this is a very versatile one. While we shouted out some of the champions that work best with it, really any champion you just need some solid cost reduction on can be good with this one. Just be careful though, because you might end up killing your own units. Echoing Spirit is up next, and this is another relic that is actually used on quite a large amount of people. Game start, create 7 copies of me in your deck. This is really good just for the fact that you're pretty much guaranteed to draw your champion then, because there's some champions that struggle not drawing their champion. Without their champion, they lose the game. So just making sure you're going to be able to play your champion, really good. Then you also have that other benefit of champion spells cost 1 less. So anyone that wants to play the champion spell very often, especially those that have draw on their champion spell, this can be really good because you can end up playing your champion spell, drawing another card, another copy of your champion, so you can play the spell again and just keep going. So overall, this is actually a pretty solid one. It's really good for Bard because that increases your chime generation, because the more copies of Bard that you have in your deck, the more chimes you generate. Also, you want to play his champion spell fairly often, so the cost reduction works pretty well there. Also really good for Diana. You really want to make sure you're having her, and then her champion spell works with a draw, so often you can play the champion spell, you're playing it for less, and then you're generating more of the champion spells you can just keep playing, so that's also really good. Misfortune, also really solid. Again, making sure you have your champion, playing champion spell for cheaper. Really good for Master Yi, because his champion spell draws another copy of his champion, so you can essentially make a bit of an infinite cycle of playing the champion spell, shuffling it into your deck, drawing your champion, playing the spell again, and with it costing 1 less, it lets that cycle just keep going. So exceptionally good for Master Yi, but also good for plenty of other champions like Echo, Vex, Yasuo, Lilia, Evelyn. Plenty of champions are wanting to utilize this relic. So this one's actually a lot more versatile than many of us initially thought it would be. Now the Fear-Cleaving Axe is up next. Spirit, so your unit is going to have 1/1, and then attack, boost all units, so yours and the enemies. So if your units have Spirit or Impact, that'll be increased. If the enemy has Gloom, that will also be increased. Now this is one that's very good for some champions, but is actually a little bit more on the niche side. So this is exceptionally good for Lux Illuminated, because her boost effects, well, the spirit you generate from boost goes off twice once she's leveled. So this is very good for Lux Illuminated. It is decent for Vex, okay for Lilia, and then you can also use this for like Gnar or Elise. Outside of that, while you technically can use it in some other champions, I haven't really found a good use case outside of those couple that we actually mentioned. Found Fortune is up next, and this is a very fun one. So play, draw the highest cost card that costs less than my base cost, grant an epic item, and reduce its cost to 0. So this is doing quite a lot for you. This is good for some champions that you really need to draw a very specific card. So an example of that is Leona. She is a 5 cost. The 4 cost in her deck is Ravoon. That makes every card you play activate your Daybreak effects. So him always having your Daybreak effects active is fantastic. So very good for Leona. You're able to play her, get your Ravoon, play him for 0 cost, and he gets an epic item. Some others this is really good on would be like Janna, because you don't care as much what card you're getting. You're just getting a cost reduced card, so you can then play that card for free. Very solid right there. Also very good for a lot of the bigger champions like Volibear or Elder Dragon, where you can play them and then play another one of their giant units. Also very solid right there. This is actually also very good for Kayn. What you can do is run double Stalker's Blade. So you play Kayn, you trigger this effect, he strikes twice, you recall him, you can then play him again for a 0 cost, he triggers Found Fortune again, so you get essentially twice the benefit of this with Kayn if you're using double strike relics. So that is pretty solid right there as well. And then this also is really good for Nasus. He has a very solid 5 cost, so being able to play Nasus and then drop another very large unit can really help you out. Really anyone that they have a very specific card right below them that they want to get and would like to get that epic item is pretty good. Elise is another example of that, because her Spiderling is below her as a 1 cost, so you can also use this to give your Spiderlings epic items. So very fun card, and a lot of interesting ways you can use this. Full build is up next, and this is a interesting one. I don't really find this relic being the best choice for anyone, but it's a solid choice on almost everyone. So this is often going to be the first relic people get, because this is the one you can earn by defeating Aurelion Sol. And yeah, it's just a solid all-around relic, but not one that you necessarily have to put on any champion. Some examples of champions that this can be good on would be like Yuumi, Jax, Vayne, Elise, Kai'Sa. This is decent for all of them, and especially just every champion, but it's not necessarily part of anyone's best build, in my opinion. Now, Icon is up next, the Icon of Valhir. So this is the Volibear epic relic that was introduced with his bundle in the most recent patch. Power, so your champion doesn't have to be on the board. Your elemental spells and skills deal 2 extra damage. So this obviously works out quite well for Volibear, because he has a lot of elemental spells and skills. And then it's pretty niche for many other champions. So it's okay for Janna. You have 2 elemental spells that this can trigger. It's okay for Neela. She has a couple, I believe 2 elemental spells or skills as well. Annie is another one where she has about 2 spells or skills that can also trigger this. And then there's also Nami with her champion spell able to trigger this as well. So it's pretty niche, and it's good on a couple different champions where they have effects where they can benefit from this, but it's normally not all of these spells and skills a certain champion is going to have. But it essentially functions like a better Ludens. Really the place where this is going to shine the most is in Talia's 6-star power. So down here you can see Talia's 6-star. When an ally attacks, it plays Threaded Volley. Your spells and skills deal 1 extra damage for each allied landmark. Now that Threaded Volley, you see Elemental Skill. Deal 2 damage to Talia's blocker. If it's dead or gone, deal 2 to the enemy nexus instead. The fact that every time you attack, you're playing this for every single one of your units is going to be very good. Using your Volibear epic relic, the Icon, to be able to boost this damage by an additional 2 will be massive. So I know it's going to be very niche, but 6-star Talia is going to be by far the best utilizer of this relic. Outside of there, though, it's going to be fairly niche, and while it's usable on a decent amount of people, even for them, it's not really their best relic. Moving on then, we have Lux's Incandescent Baton. So power, if I'm Lux, +1 starting mana, and then game start, draw a follower that costs 2 or less, and grant it Targon's Brace. Now, this is only really usable for both versions of Lux, so Lux Illuminated and then just Lux. It works for both of them. Both of them get that +1 starting mana, which is very nice. Then the other effect of drawing a follower and giving that Targon's Brace is nice. Targon's Brace is the common item that makes your unit have support. Grant my supported ally 1/1. So solid, but really only Lux, either version, is going to want to use this. Other than that, it's not a strong enough effect really for anyone. Moving on then, we have Norra's Portal Accelerator. So game start, if I'm Norra, +1 starting mana. When you summon a created ally, grant it impact. Again, pretty much just want to use this for Norra. Also, it can be decent for Poro King. So you're making a lot of Poros, and you want to get a lot of keywords. So making your Poros have impact so they can trigger your star powers to scale up their whole board. He can actually utilize this fairly well. But again, another one that is very niche. All right, moving on, then we have Oath of the Guardians, one that you're able to use on just about anyone. So shuffle 5 level 2 champions into your deck and double their stats, then draw one of them. Now, this is really good on really just any cheap champion that you can just play and get them on the board right away. Because what you can do, you can just put on Oath of the Guardians and then double star gems. So allied champions have 1/1 and cost 2 less. You could use this on like Teemo, Annie, or just any 1 or 2 cost champion. Get them on the board very quickly, and then they give you all these champions, and you can play them at a drastically reduced price. So that is something you do on any just 1 or 2 cost champion. Now, some that utilize this very well is Samira, because with Samira you can also get extra cost reduction from your star powers, so you can play just incredibly expensive champions for nothing often. So that's another one that is really good with this. And then Diana is also very solid, because normally, well, a lot of champions have quick attack. So since they already have quick attack, when you play them with your star powers, they then get double attack. So Diana is another one that's very good with the Oath of the Guardians. Also can be solid on like Thresh, Elder Dragon, Aurelian Soul, Volibear, and can also be good for like Neela, because you have a lot of draw, so you can try to find the champions that's shuffling into your deck. And the same with Echo. With your predicts, you can try to find the champions and buff them up even more. So those are kind of all the ones you really want to be using this on. But it's a very general relic that you can pretty much throw on anyone, and you'll normally have pretty good results with it. Next up then, we have Packed Powder. So Plunder, I cost 2 less, so the same as Scourge's Stash. But I also have 1/1 for each different round you've damaged the enemy nexus. So a little bit of scaling on here. Now, this is a solid relic to give you some cost reduction for your champion. Often you can pair it with Scourge's Stash to just make your champion cost nothing. So that's one thing I really like to do for Janna. She's a 4 cost. You pair these two together, and then you can play Janna just for a 0 cost, so as a cost reduced card. Really solid. I do like it for Pyke. Trying to get him on the board early can really help you out, especially since he costs so much. So getting him on the board early is very good. And then normally you can damage the enemy nexus most rounds, and so being able to scale up your Pyke, also very solid right here. Also really good for like Gnar. Getting him on the board early again is very good. With Gnar, you're all about damaging the enemy nexus every round, so again, you can consistently get that scaling off. Also good for like Samira. Get her on the board early or play her for free, and she can also scale with that plunder damage. Misfortune is another one where you can normally get this damage going, and you want to be playing very aggressive with Misfortune, so getting her on the board and being able to play other units potentially in the first round as well really help you out. And again, that scaling really, really good. And one of the best champions with this is Morgana, because Morgana, she's a fairly expensive champion being a 5 cost, so getting her on the board is great. But from your second star power, you're actually damaging the enemy nexus almost every round. So if we take a look at the star power, +1 starting mana, round end, deal 2 to cursed enemies and 1 damage to the enemy nexus for each curse in their hand. So as long as the enemy has a curse in their hand, which you're going to do almost every single round, you're dealing 1 damage to the enemy nexus. So you're getting the cost reduction from the Packed Powder on your Morgana, which is great. But then you're getting consistent scaling, so you're getting 1/1 almost every round. And with Morgana, you're normally going to have many rounds. The game's going to go on pretty long. And she is lifesteal, so making her a big unit, big lifesteal unit, really, really good for your Morgana. Couple more champions, though, to mention. Darius, also really solid, trying to get him on the board very quickly. And then same for Poro King. If you want to go for a build to get him on the board quickly so he can start making those Poro snacks, Packed Powder is solid for him as well. Moving on then, we have Portal Pals. So when I'm summoned, create 2 random 7 cost units from your regions and reduce its cost by my base cost. Now this is one that isn't used on too many units, but can still be pretty solid, especially for a lot of those very expensive champions. So this is great for like Elder Dragon, because not only are they going to be free from whoever you get because Elder Dragon is so expensive, but they also get even further discounted from your star powers. So anything you pull out is going to be free, which is going to be fantastic for you. Can be great for Volibear because often these units are going to be Titanic. Can be very good actually for Viego, especially if you stay in Shadow Isles, because all of the Shadow Isles 7 and higher cost units are very good. Viego costs 7 himself, so normally they're going to be heavily discounted from that, but then you also have cost reduction from your second star power as Viego. So again, normally you'll be going to be able to play these 2 units for free. Normally they're very strong units, and so Viego's one that this actually works exceptionally well on. And then you could use this with Aurelion Soul, kind of one of the last bigger units, but I feel like Aurelion Soul, you have other relics that are a little bit better for you to choose. Overall, one of the more niche relics, but can really help out some individuals. Now, Secret Technique is up next. Power, when an ally gains stats from a spell, it gains twice that many instead. So very important that this says from a spell, so not just anytime they gain power, but this can really help you out. As you see here, this is Master Yi, and he definitely works very well for this because he has so many combat tricks. So Master Yi, great one here. Misfortune, she generates combat tricks every round, so she's another one, really good. Leona, you have 2 different spells, your Morning Lights that you're generating from your second star power. Also, it's Leona's champion spell that hits your entire board for stats, so doubling that is really good. Now, it's going to be really good for Diana. Again, her champion spell, combat trick. So doubling that effect, very solid. Varus, you have so many spells you're generating, also good. Poro King, your Poro Snacks can hit your Poros everywhere. I think someone said that it was just hitting Poros on your board, but we tested it. All of your Poros everywhere get the effect, so just making all of your Poro Snacks better, really good. Nasus, using his Siphoning Strike, which if you kill a unit, it gives all your champions 2/2 everywhere. With Secret Technique, it's now 4/4 to all your champions everywhere. So Nasus is another one that actually can utilize this very well. And then Tahm Kench is another one to shout out. His capture spell, where one of your units captures another one of your own units and gains their stats, that gives you twice the amount. So that's another more like just fun way to play with it, and it's not really that big of an impact, but can be fun to play around with. So Tahm Kench is another one that can utilize this fairly well. Next up then, we have Shock and Awe. So this is the Misfortune Epic Relic that got added this last patch. Power, when an ally that costs 1 or less attacks, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. Now this is one that you can use on just anyone that has a decent amount of 1 costs, such as like Elise, Poro King, Yumi. So while they can utilize this, I don't think it's really that useful for them. It's okay. But I think there's a lot of better choices. Obviously, Misfortune is one that this is fantastic for, especially if you get her to 6 stars. The 6-star for Misfortune, while in combat, your spells and skills deal 4 extra damage. So being able to increase the damage by 4 of that relic, very good. So this was obviously made for Misfortune, and it works very well for her. I think it also works very well for Annie, because Annie's a 1 cost, so she triggers this herself. She also has other 1 costs in her deck, and she's also increasing the damage of this quite a lot. So Annie's another one that is very good. Jin can utilize this. Like, yes, he has skill synergy, but you only have 1 cost. So I don't think this is really worth it for just the one cost that you have that's going to be attacking. So while he can use it, I think you have better options for this, to be honest. So pretty niche. Overall, I think the best 2 is by far Misfortune and Annie, but for both of them, it is a very good relic. Now, the Spectral Scissors is up next. This was recently nerfed, so 2 power, really good. Like we talked about earlier, you can use this just as a stat relic to try to hit a certain breakpoint, such as like Starforged Gauntlets to hit that Titanic, but plus 2 power, and then support. If my supported ally is a follower, so it doesn't work on champions anymore, grant it ephemeral and summon a exact copy of it attacking. So really good. A lot of champions that can utilize this, especially all the people that make ephemeral units already. So like Viego, being able to summon another one of your mists to further buff everything, really good. Misfortune and Gwen, using this to get more of your ephemerals already attacking alongside you, also very solid. Still okay for Nidalee, not as good as it used to be, but another unit you have attacking alongside you that can trigger your level up. That is pretty good. Also exceptionally good for Ornn, using this on your ram to summon 2 giant rams fighting alongside you. really good right there. Also solid for Norra, as this is going to be a created unit, so that's going to trigger your level up condition, your star powers, and be just very aggressive. So still an overall fun relic, but not as good as it used to be. Next up then, we have the Spellweaver's Symphony. So power, when you gain the attack token, create a random spell that costs 2 from your regions in hand. It costs 0 and is fleeting. This is another one that you can pretty much throw this on any champion and have a good time with, because you're just getting free spells every time you get the attack token. So very broad one, you can use on pretty much anyone, but there are some champions that can really benefit from this. For one, Janna, this is giving you a 0 cost spell when you gain the attack token. So cost reduced card, really good right there. It's decent for Neela, being able to have a fleeting card. So when you play that, it's going to get doubled from your star powers. Or if you don't play it, that's fine, because it'll go into your deck and give you more fleeting cards at next round to be able to have that generation of fleeting cards. So also solid right there. Now, some things to note. This says when you gain the attack token. So you can get the attack token multiple times in a certain round for some champions. And it's also a random spell that costs 2 from your regions. So whatever regions you have is where the spell will be coming from. Some regions have better spells than others. Demacia and Freljord are pretty good. They have a lot of just solid combat tricks. But some other regions like Ionia are pretty bad because most of theirs are recalls. So it's pretty good to go into the just card gallery and look at the different regions and their 2 costs and see which ones would really work for your champion. In general though, Freljord, Demacia, and Targon are also pretty good and general cards. Shadow Isles is good if you want to be able to kill your own units. So some more examples of who to use this on. Vayne, Lux Illuminated, Garen, Samira, Nami, Yuumi, all those can really benefit from this. This is actually also quite good for Aurelion Sol, as this is giving you a created card to play, so it's going to get a epic item on it, so that can really help you, well, rare or epic, so that can really help you out, and that gives you also cost reduction for your champion. So Aurelion Sol is actually pretty good for this. And then again, good for those Shadow Isles decks that want to kill their own units, so like Thresh, Viego, Kindred, all can be pretty beneficial there. Again, a relic you can throw on almost anyone and have it just help you out and give you just a more enjoyable experience. Spirit of the Buhru is up next, and this relic is incredible for those that can utilize it. So power, allies that cost 1 or less have Overwhelm, Quick Attack, and Fury. This is exceptionally good for Elise, because all your Spiderlings then get all these keywords. Very good. So good for Poro King. This lets you trigger your star powers normally round 1, so you just have board-wide scaling from the very start of the game. Very good right there. Also decent on Alawi. Solid for Yuumi, because this can really affect all your Poros. And you can use it on Eve to give your husks all of these keywords, so that anyone that consumes one of the husks also gets them. But I think Evelyn has a lot of better options, but she definitely can utilize this if you want. Starforged is up next, and really this is a relic that it's such a strong effect that you can use it on anyone that can hit Titanic. So power, if I'm Titanic, +1 starting mana, and then you can find level 2 champions when you invoke or manifest. That last part only really useful for Aurelion Sol. Being able to have +1 starting mana is so good that normally what people are doing is they're using Starforged Gauntlets and then using any stat relics to trigger that Titanic. So on most champions that have 5 health, they just throw on a Luminous Orb to get to 8 health, so they can then get that +1 starting mana and then have like 1 Flex Relic. So incredibly good, especially good for all the people that are already Titanic, so like Aurelion Sol, Elder Dragon, Mordekaiser, and Volibear. Really good for all them because they don't have to use other relics in order to trigger that Titanic. It can be especially good for some of the other champions where they can play a little bit more passively, or they don't necessarily need their champion to be on the board. So like Lux, original Lux that is, and Talia also can be very good for them. Honestly though, pretty much anyone that you can hit Titanic, this is good for. All right, getting close to the end, we only have 2 relics left. So next up we have Strength of Stone. So 2 health. That's just extra stats for your champion. And then power, when you summon an ally, grant it 1 power and formidable. So For Formidable, they strike with their health instead of their power. Now, this is very niche, and not many people can utilize this. This is actually very good for Kayn, because for Kayn, he has the star powers of when his units kill someone, they fully heal and then scale up. So for him, you can really benefit from the Formidable aspect. Also, a lot of his units and Kayn himself have a higher health pool than they do a power. So using your health as power is really beneficial there. The main issue with Formidable is as you get damaged, your power goes down, which is very bad. But for Kayn, since you're healing up after every time you kill a unit, you can really mitigate that large drawback for Formidable. So Kayn is by far the best user of this. Tried it with Tahm Kench, didn't like it. I think it's pretty bad. You can try to make something work, but Tahm Kench is all about damaging his own units. That kind of goes against Formidable. So I don't think this is actually that good for Tahm Kench. One that I actually just tried earlier today is Poro King. Using this to be able to give your Poros an extra keyword, since this is a power, can be pretty good. You can potentially pair this with like Norra's Relic if you want, so that your units can potentially get Formidable as well as Impact, and then also Beast Within, which we're about to get to, giving your units that overwhelm. So if you just need to give keywords to your units, especially for like Poro King, it can work in that situation. Really though, Kayn is the only champion that really wants to utilize this. Last up then, we have Beast Within. So power, allies have overwhelm, and if they have a subtype, 1/1. Fairly similar to many of the, well, some of the other relics. This can be used on pretty much everyone. Just making sure your units have overwhelm is incredibly powerful. So that right there is really good. And then if they have a subtype 1/1, that part actually can be very nice. So some champions that can utilize this very well is like Pyke, because all of his champions are lurkers, which count as a subtype. So making sure Pyke has overwhelm in all of his units and 1/1 is really, really good. Also, some other ones, Jax, all of your weapon masters, that counts as a subtype. So extra stats right there. Poro King, Yuumi, Aatrox, Kayn, Gnar, Nico. So while this can be used on pretty much everyone that wants overwhelm, all the champions that want overwhelm and have a lot of subtypes, this is definitely best with. Really, the only champions that don't want this is champions that are already getting overwhelmed from their star powers or constellations. So like Talia, Viego, Gwen, any of those don't really care for this as much. But outside of this, a relic you can really use on just about anyone. That is it for all of the epic relics currently in the game. I hope this video helped you out. It took a long time testing everything. If it did, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated, and I hope you have a great day.